Welcome back to Coffee Unlimited. I'm here with my friend and co host Janelle Ocker, and we're excited about continuing this series of When Your Beliefs Start to Crack. I'm going back to our offsite a couple weeks ago where we had so many deep discussions, and one of them was around the topic of religion. And I actually wasn't really raised in a religious home, but Janelle, you were. And I remember you sharing your experience about when your beliefs on Catholicism started to crack. And so I just thought this would be a really great topic. And we both know it's probably very relatable to many people on what happened. What did you do? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, Danielle, thanks for bringing this topic back up because you and I did have a pretty deep conversation about that, and I was happy to share my own personal experience around it. So, as you said, I was raised Catholic. Our family was Catholic. My father converted to Catholicism to marry my mom. So he wasn't raised Catholic, but he converted so that he could marry her. And we were pretty committed to the religion. We went every week, like a lot of Catholic families do. I did the Sunday school. I did go through many of the sacraments that are part of the Catholic religion. So I was baptized. I took the first Eucharist. I went through confirmation. And a lot of people do confirmation, which is a deeper commitment to the religion, and it can take a couple years. A lot of people do confirmation as a pretty young child, but I purposely chose to wait until high school to do my confirmation because even at that age, I had this an understanding that this was a big commitment and I wanted to make it with as much information as possible and as mature as possible. So it was something that I chose. I went through 2 years of confirmation. And then I even went to a Catholic university. And when I was in university, I got very involved in masses, and I would go to church a couple times a week because our dorms actually offered services as well, and I would go to the dorm service as well. So I'm just saying all that to say I would be considered very committed to the Catholic Church and
Yeah.
and was happy to be committed to it. It felt I at the time I liked the structure of it. I thought a lot of the teachings were good teachings and interesting. But what was really surprising was that in college, in my freshman year, I went to a liberal, well, it was Catholic, like I said, but it was liberal arts as well. So, in your freshman year, you take a variety of courses on a variety of topics, and one of them that all freshmen take is Intro to World Religions. And up until that point, I had not been exposed to any religion other than Catholicism. I didn't even know anyone. I grew up in a small town in Washington State. I didn't know anyone that was another religion. I didn't know anyone that practiced Judaism. I didn't know anyone that was Buddhist, Hindu, anything. I only knew Christians and mostly Catholics or Methodist. So when I started to learn about other world religions, a couple things opened for me. One, I realized that, hey, there's a real common thread among all of them. There's a lot of some of the same core values, and there are some differences. And I started to get curious about the differences around things like the sacraments. In
Hmm.
the Catholic Church, one of the sacraments, and sacraments are important to Catholics, meaning you are expected to do them. One of them is reconciliation, and which is confession. So
Hmm.
there's this idea that when you sin, if you want to be absolved of your sin, what you do is you go to the Catholic Church, you sit in front of a priest, you confess your sin, and then they bless you and you are graced from it. And that is how you are absolved from your sin. That always felt a little odd to me, but I
Hmm.
didn't question it. Like I said, I didn't question it, even though I felt it was odd. There was something a little off to me about this idea that this man, because priests are always a man in the Catholic Church, this man had the power to absolve me of sin. When I thought deep down, God was all knowing and God would and could forgive me directly. So
Hmm.
there was moments where I just thought, oh, this seems odd, but I didn't question it. But then when I started learning about other world religions, I started to question the practices. I didn't stop practicing. It wasn't until
What does that mean? Like when you
stop
practice a
practicing.
religion, is that like going to church or confessing? What is like,
Yeah.
yeah, practicing a
That's a
religious
that's a
person
good
do?
question, and it probably means something different for everyone. For me, it meant going to church. To
Hmm.
me, I literally thought that practicing a religion was going every Sunday, listening, and then trying to abide by the teachings and the rules of the church, because
Okay.
that is really what religion at the core is. It's a bunch of rules. And when you get down to it, it's your rules on how to live your life. And and so practicing it would be following the rules and making yourself go to church every week. And so I still did that. I still did that up until I got engaged to my now husband, who is not Catholic. And when we started to talk to a priest whom we both knew because we both went to the University of Portland and we both knew this beloved priest at the university, and we started to talk to him about our marriage, our upcoming wedding, and he was so excited for us. And he started to ask questions of me around because he knew I was a quote unquote good Catholic girl. He started to ask questions about Carl and if Carl was going to convert to Catholicism and be basically confirmed Catholic. And I told the father that I didn't plan to ask Carl to do that. And he asked me why. And I said, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of Catholics. I've now met people from all over the world here at this university. And Carl is a good one. He's one of the real good ones. And I just don't think that there's anything wrong with him, quote unquote, that being converted to Catholicism was going to save him from anything. And I just didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to ask him to become Catholic so that he could marry me. And so that was the first, I think, friction between me and if it was going to be like me against the Catholic Church,
Hmm.
because the priest made it clear that Carl needed to be confirmed Catholic if we were going to get married in the Catholic Church, which brought up the second point. We didn't plan to get married in the church. And
Hmm.
that one, actually, surprisingly enough, was the straw that broke the camel's back for this priest. He felt it is paramount that your marriage occurs in a Catholic church by a Catholic priest. Otherwise, it's not anointed, it's not sacred, and it's not an actual, you're not fulfilling the sacrament of marriage unless a priest conducts it in the Catholic Church.
Hmm.
And so he was really worried for me and my soul. Was his language. And he let me know that if we did not get married in the Catholic Church, then I myself, as a Catholic, was no longer welcome in the Catholic Church because I broke one of the sacraments.
Oh, okay. So that's what happens if you break a sacrament. So if you were to get married in a
Mm-hmm.
garden
Mm-hmm.
with a
You've
Catholic
broken the
priest,
sacrament.
or
It
maybe,
wouldn't be, and there are the Catholic Church has a spectrum. There are different
hmm,
orders within the Catholic Church that have different, um, I would say, not beliefs, but they tolerate different things. So there are likely many priests out there that would be okay with that.
hmm.
But this particular priest, whom we both looked up to and were pretty close with, his belief was that that would be breaking a sacrament, and then I was no longer a practicing Catholic and no longer welcome in the Catholic Church. And I,
That's so
I,
much power for one
yeah.
person to have. I mean, especially because you said, you grew up with the Catholic Church. There were things that you really appreciated too. And I'm sure there were a lot of things that were positive about being part of this community. And so I can
Definitely.
just imagine a priest just being like, oh, well, now you're not going to be allowed to
Yeah,
part of our community anymore.
exactly. It was a metaphorical slap in the face for sure, and it shocked me a bit. But something about me that maybe you know, or maybe you don't. I'm a Scorpio, Danielle. And being a Scorpio, I'm fiercely loyal until you cross me.
I
Like
love
truly.
this.
Like if you read descriptions of Scorpios, we're loyal, we value honesty and truth, we're passionate, we're creative, curious, and we can be very stubborn. And also, we can completely shut someone out if we want to. Like if we feel that someone has crossed us, you're dead to us. And so I just was like, okay, I'm not going to be bullied right now
Yeah.
by
Good for
this
you.
priest or the Catholic Church. If you feel I'm not welcome, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Goodbye. And I haven't been back. I literally have not been back to the Catholic Church. I'm
That's
just, I can be
amazing.
done with something as
Yeah.
quickly as that. And it might be surprising to some people that, I spent so many years being committed
Mhm.
and then just like that. But I also realize there's a lot of other things out there, and I haven't changed as a person. I still, in many ways, am a practicing Catholic in that I follow a lot of the values of the Catholic
Mhm.
Church. I also fundamentally disagree with a lot of the rules of the Catholic Church around homosexuality. The Catholic
Mhm.
Church, and it's changing. I think it is changing, but many orders within the Catholic Church have very strong beliefs against
Yeah.
homosexuality, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
For me, my personal inner beliefs in my soul is that love is love, and love can never be wrong. Love can
Mhm.
never be wrong. The feeling of love and the act of love is never bad. No matter if it's love between a man and a woman, love between two men, love between a person and their dog, no
Mhm.
love is bad. And so
Mhm.
when people are shunned from a community because of who they love, that's where I start to break down. Like my beliefs start to crack, like truly,
Mhm.
because inside me, it feels not right.
Yeah.
So that's where, I really, if we were to say what was the point where you started to question beliefs that I was literally raised in, I think
Mhm.
I was going to church before I remember going to church,
Yeah.
so it's always been around me. The teachings of the church have always been around me. And I was a really good student. I did all of my homework, for Sunday school, and I was filling out all the workbooks, and I was answering all the questions, and I was trying to be as good as I could be. So to your point, there were some positive things because I do think there's a lot of positive things about it. But when I go back to the core fundamentals of what a religion is, it's rules.
Mhm.
and and someone wrote the rules, and I think we should always question who's benefiting from the rules
Mhm.
and why do we have them. So that's my story of religion. And since then, I think I've continued to question some of these things that were ingrained in my mind around marriage, relationships, like I said, reconciliation, just all of
Mhm.
these things that I took to be factual and carved in stone, like the Ten Commandments carved in stone. I think I'm wide open in that. What does it mean to be a good human? What does it mean to be a good person? And what is our purpose on this planet? And what is our connection to everything? I'm questioning it all. And we haven't raised our kids religious with any religion because um, we want them to be able to form their own belief system. And we know that they're already influenced a lot by Carl and I, and
Yeah.
we know that they're influenced by raised in North America. We
Mhm.
know they're influenced by media. We know they're influenced by their schooling. I think adding in beliefs of religion, I think right now it just felt too early to expose them to it. And if they want to pursue a path in any specific religion, I will be completely supportive. But I want them to make those choices on their own and explore the teachings and the systems of
Mhm.
those religions themselves.
That's such a fascinating story. I mean, I think about, how you're raising your children right now and just creating the space for them to choose their religion if and when they
Yeah.
want to do that. And it made me think about my mom. So my mom was born and not really raised. I mean, I guess there's some practices of Buddhism that she followed and my grandmother did.
Mm.
But when she came to the States, she had to convert to marry my dad, who was Christian. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if she was really involved that much because I don't remember going to church. We went there a couple of times after my parents split up, and neither my mom nor I understood what the priest was saying. And it just kind of looked like we're coming to just wear our Sunday best and meet people. And
Yeah.
it was like the Beverly Hills Presbyterian Church. I was thinking my mom might be able to find a single man. So that was my hidden agenda. I was like, okay, my mommy's going to be able to meet some rich man. But then, like, there were all these families. I'm like, okay, this is so boring. We're just putting on these outfits. Let's just, neither of us understand what he's talking about. Let's stop going. I think I was 12 or 13. But then later, my mom really started to get uh, involved in reading the Bible. This is
Mm.
later, towards the end of her life. And I remember going over to her house, and she would have all these other Japanese women there too. It was her apartment. So it was like three other Japanese women, and they were all reading the Bible in
Mm.
Japanese. And I
Hmm.
thought, wow, look at this. Everybody wants the ability. I mean, this is maybe a blanket statement. I'm generalizing, but I think generally people want to be able to choose their own religion because none of these
Mm-hmm.
Japanese women were born into Christianity. I mean, they were all first generation Japanese women, not speaking a lot of English too, but they were having their Bible studies together in Japanese. And I was like,
Wow.
this is so sweet.
Yeah, and such a like they made their own community.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. And I do think, what's interesting about me hearing you say that about reading the Bible. What's interesting about religion is that Christianity, let's take Christianity as an example because that's what I know. The different types of Christianity use the same Bible, and yet they can interpret it differently around the
Mm-hmm.
different religions. So that's the thing too. I think the Bible has a lot of, in my opinion, has a lot of really beautiful things to learn. A lot of it is parable and it's stories and it's meant to be educational or, cautionary tales and things like that. And it can be interpreted in many different ways. And so, depending on which religion you join or are born into, you will be absorbed in the interpretation through that lens.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can have Christians who believe that mankind is the only species that has a soul and the only one um, worthy of salvation, which means going to heaven. And you can have Christians that interpret so those first Christians, they use the Bible to defend that. They say, well, the Bible says, this and that God created this for man and that, you can do all these things to the earth. And then someone else can read it and be like, well, I hear it this way. And actually, all animals have souls. But it's the same text. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on who is guiding you and interpreting it, or if you're trusting your own self. And I think about your mom and her friends reading it in Japanese, you said? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
reading it in Japanese and forming their own opinion. I think that's beautiful. Form your own opinion about the words, but
Mm-hmm.
don't take what the religious leader up at the front of the room, what they say, how to interpret it. Don't take that as the law.
Yeah.
Because honestly, there are a lot of religious leaders who are very unholy. So
Mm-hmm.
I would not want to hear their interpretation
Right.
because they do awful things.
Yeah.
And so, I think what's challenging is that in a lot of religions, so much power is given to those pastors and priests at the front.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this congregation of people that hear their teachings and their interpretation of the Bible, and they take that as law, where I think really the Bible is meant to be interpreted on your own. And you read it on your own and you make it what feels right for you.
Wouldn't that be cool if it was like Bible study was this place where you crack beliefs? Like that's
Yes.
like on the agenda. What do
Yes.
you think about this interpretation? How do you interpret
Yes. And
these
have a
words or
conversation around a table instead
yeah.
of like I'm picturing a round table and everyone maybe you read a passage and then you discuss it. And what does this mean for you? And what does that mean for you? Versus everyone sitting in pews, they call them in the Catholic Church, those
Mhm.
long, uncomfortable chairs. They're always uncomfortable benches.
Yeah.
And you sitting there, standing, sitting, kneeling, standing, kneeling, sitting. And there's one person in front that's telling you, do this, do that. This is what you should do.
There's
And
no
we're all just
discussion.
blind following what they say.
Right.
Yeah, that's how beliefs get instilled where and because so much power is given to the person speaking the words
Hmm. Yeah. I love.
as a as opposed to allowing people to um I don't know, make sense of things on their own.
Hmm. There's so many parallels. Like when I studied the Yoga Sutras, right? There's
Mm.
the yamas and niyamas, the core values of yoga or the ethical guidelines of how we should behave. And they're
Mm.
similar to the Ten Commandments as well. So when we're going through these discussions, I love sitting in a group and just reminding everybody that, look, I'm not the one here who has any of these answers. Like the truth is in the collective. So let's
Mm.
have a discussion around this and something someone says inspires somebody else. It takes it into a fruitful discussion and we end up probably just leaving with more questions than answers.
Yeah, which is kind of a fun way to live with a lot of questions because at the end of the day, we can never know anything for certain. If you really
Hmm.
think about it, if you really think about it, we have five senses, is it? Which are limited. I mean, you think other animals have other senses. So definitely you think about whales, how they communicate. Dogs can hear sounds that we can't hear. So we know that we're limited in what we can understand. We're also limited by language. So if you think like we have thoughts in our language based on how many letters and words we have in that language. And there's definitely things about the universe that we can't explain with the words created by the English language. You just can't.
Hmm.
You just can't. And so there's obviously things that we can't know or comprehend or communicate. Not even a priest could communicate the essence of God, really. But so there's that. Then we all have our own perspective on anything. So if there's always another side to it, just by default, like if we take perspective in the literal term, like I'm looking at a piano across from me right now from my perspective, which is by nature of it, I'm coming from this direction in this little tunnel of my eyes. It's not the whole picture of the piano. I can't see the back of the piano right now.
Hmm.
So I cannot see the whole thing of the piano. I can't know the whole truth of the piano. I can only see it from my perspective. I can't know everything. If you were on the other side, you could tell me what you see, but we also can't see from the left or the right. So perspective by itself is inherently not the whole truth because you
Yeah.
can't see 360. You can't
Hmm.
see everything. You can't sense everything. You can't know everything. So everything we believe, we can't prove anything to be completely true, 100% true.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to accept that, there's actually a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of end to suffering in that,
Hmm.
knowing that you can't know everything. Because a lot of times suffering is, and we think we know, and we believe something and we think it to be true, and it's really not. So if we actually tell ourselves we don't know everything, um, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, maybe that situation is good, maybe the situation is bad. We don't know. There's some peace in that.
I really love this perspective of not, yeah, like
Not
maybe we
knowing.
don't know anything.
Maybe we
And
don't.
then it allows us to be in a space of real, true curiosity and
Hmm.
listening rather than knowing, right?
Yeah.
Rather than coming to a situation already thinking we know. But
Yeah.
what a wonderful
Well,
story, Janelle. Thank you for sharing that. And
yeah, thanks for creating the space to talk about this. And I know it's probably it's a sensitive topic. Religion can be a very sensitive topic,
Mhm.
and that's my experience with it. And I definitely had a belief system shaped by the Catholic religion, and I hit a point in my life where that belief system cracked open, and I realized that there was more. There was more out there, and there was more perspectives and more things to consider that could be true.
Yes. And
Hmm.
did you and Carl end up getting married outside?
We did get married outside. My friend's dad officiated.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
one of my
that.
best friends, her dad officiated. Um he's a lawyer, and he was able to do that legally. So
So it's
we had a
legit.
very nice, it's legit, it's official. Um and maybe for another conversation, we talk about the system of marriage where women take
Right.
the last name of the man, because I still have regrets about that. Let me just say.
Well, I think you can
I
reverse
don't know
that.
why I took my husband's last name. Like,
I
I
think
just
you should.
blindly followed that.
I know. I feel like you should reverse that because
I
your maiden
probably
name is so
should.
cool. I mean,
Thanks.
not that
Yeah.
Carl's last name isn't cool either, but
Yeah, I have this
oh,
feeling of, and this isn't on him. This he does not project this, but just the system of taking a man's last name has this feeling of ownership that doesn't sit right with me.
yes.
So anyway, that's for another day. That's
Yes, we'll
another
talk about that
conversation.
later.
Yeah, but hopefully, all those that joined this conversation, thanks for joining us. Hopefully, it opened a window to see something differently for you as well. And if you want to subscribe so you know when our next episode will drop, feel free to do so. You can also follow us on Instagram at Coffee Unlimited with J and D. We'll see you next time.